There's a manga about a monster who loves a child. Not in a horror way, not in a dark fairy tale with a lesson way, just genuinely, quietly, without explanation, loves her. And the whole series is about whether that love is enough to protect her from a world that's decided neither of them should exist. That's it. 11 volumes, one question, and Nagabe stretches it to the breaking point. The manga is The Girl from the Other Side, Siúil a Rún, written and drawn by Nagabe, published in Monthly Comic Garden, 11 volumes, fully completed, or 4 deluxe editions. The title comes from an old Irish folk song, which tells you exactly what kind of manga this is going to be before you've read a single page. I came to this one through a recommendation from someone who described it as a sad picture book for adults who've stopped being able to cry easily. That sold me immediately. I read all 11 volumes, or all 4 deluxe editions, which I have here, in about a week. So let's talk about this. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is a good time. It's free, it takes 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps. I'll wait. Welcome aboard. Like the video too if you're enjoying this. It tells the algorithm this kind of content is worth pushing, which I'd argue it is. So here's the setup. There's a world that's been divided into 2 groups, the insiders and the outsiders. The outsiders are cursed. They've lost their human form and become these long, dark, shadowy figures, vaguely human in shape, but clearly not. Anyone an outsider touches gets cursed too. So the 2 groups are kept strictly apart. Insiders fear outsiders. Outsiders are hunted by soldiers. Nobody knows exactly how the curse started, and the story doesn't rush to explain it. In the middle of all this, a young girl named Shiva wakes up alone in a forest on the outsider side. She doesn't know where her aunt is. She doesn't know how she got there. She's about 5 years old, and she's utterly calm about the whole thing in the way only small children can be, because she doesn't fully understand the danger she's in. And then she meets Teacher. Teacher is an outsider. Long dark limbs and featureless face like a smudge, antlers and the full aesthetic package. He finds Shiva and, against every instinct that should tell him to stay away, he decides to keep her safe. He builds her a house. He makes her meals. He reads to her. He tells her gently but firmly not to touch him, and she mostly listens. The relationship between them is the entire series. It's not complicated in a plot sense. Shiva trusts Teacher completely. Teacher cares for Shiva with a kind of exhausted, guilty tenderness. The danger is always external. Soldiers looking for Shiva, outsiders drawn to her light, the political machinery of the insider world hunting what it doesn't understand. The story unfolds slowly. There are flashbacks. There's a mythology that gets unspooled piece by piece. We learn more about the curse, about what Teacher was before, about Shiva's family and why she ended up where she did. The answers, when they come, are quiet. They don't detonate, they settle. Nagabe's art is unlikely almost anything else in manga. It's soft, deliberately, disarmingly soft. The line work is loose and almost sketch-like, and the shading relies heavily on thin, delicate hatching that gives everything a kind of watercolor fragility. Characters have simple, expressive faces. Teacher's form is rendered in dense, flat black. This deep, ink-heavy silhouette that shouldn't be able to convey warmth, but somehow does, entirely through posture and gesture. The page layouts are unconventional too. A lot of white space, panels that breathe. Nagabe doesn't panic fill pages the way action manga does. The emptiness is doing work. It creates the feeling of a world that's too large and too quiet for the characters in it. There's a recurring visual grammar around height and scale. Teacher is enormous compared to Shiva. Not monstrous enormous, more like how an adult looks to a very small child. The size difference is used constantly to create simultaneous safety and threat. He could harm her without trying. He chooses not to. Every time they share a frame, the tension is right there in the proportions. The only critique I'd make on the art is that the loose line work can sometimes make the occasional action sequence feel slightly vague. A couple of moments where I had to reread a page to understand exactly what happened physically. Minor, but worth noting. Shiva is one of the most carefully written children in manga. She's not precocious. She's not used as a device to say wise things. She's just a child. Trusting, resilient in that unthinking way children are before they understand consequences. Occasionally infuriating in how she refuses to be scared when she should be. Nagabe resists the temptation to make her a symbol. She stays human throughout. Teacher is harder to describe without spoilers. His guilt is the engine of the series. He cares for Shiva not in spite of what he is, but almost because of it. There's an implicit logic. If I can protect this child, maybe what I am means something other than destruction. The tragedy of the character is that he knows this logic doesn't hold, and he does it anyway. The supporting cast, inside soldiers, other outsiders, Shiva's relatives, are used sparingly but efficiently. A village elder whose arc quietly reframes the entire mythology in the final third, another outsider who appears early and whose role becomes much more significant later. Nagabe keeps the cast tight. Nobody is there just to fill space. Thematically, the manga is about care without rescue. Teacher cannot save Shiva from everything. The world she lives in is broken in ways that precede her and will outlast her. What he can do is be present, be gentle, and love her without demanding that love fix anything. That's what the series is actually about. The limits of protection and the value of it anyway. Now, a couple of positive criticisms. The pacing. Nagabe trusts the reader completely. No hand-holding, no recap boxes, no characters explaining things they'd already know for the audience's benefit. Scenes are allowed to be quiet. Information arrives when it needs to. I can't think of another 11-volume manga that feels this controlled across its entire run. The use of folklore. The title, Siúil, Run, is from an Irish song about longing across an impossible divide. The series draws on fairy tale and folk horror conventions without being slavishly faithful to any specific tradition. It creates its own mythology using borrowed shapes, and it does it elegantly. And then the ending. Without spoiling it, Nagabe does not flinch. The ending earns its emotional weight because it's been built for 11 volumes, and it doesn't compromise to make the reader feel better. One of the few manga endings I've read that felt exactly right, even though it hurt. A couple of minor criticisms. The mythology drift. The intentional opacity is mostly a strength, but there are moments in the middle volumes where the ambiguity starts to feel like drift. Some details about the origin of the curse remain vague in ways I don't think were entirely intentional. If you're reading expecting complete world-building coherence, you'll hit a couple of walls. Mid-series pacing sags. Roughly volumes 5 through 7 slow down considerably. The quietness that works so well in the early volumes starts to feel slightly static here. It picks back up, but there's a stretch where the series is clearly treading water while figuring out how to get to its ending. Not enough to derail it, enough to notice. Who should read this? Read this if you appreciate manga that prioritizes emotional texture over plot momentum. If you want something fully completed you can sit with from beginning to end and are comfortable with ambiguity, not every question gets answered. Skip this series if you need plot momentum to stay engaged, want hard answers about the world's lore, aren't in the headspace for something genuinely melancholic. My personal verdict, an 8.3 out of 10. The Girl from the Other Side is one of those series that does exactly what it sets out to do and very little else, which sounds like faint praise, but it isn't. Nagabe had a specific, delicate thing to say and said it across 11 volumes without losing the thread. That's where. The art is unlike anything else in the medium, the characters are written with genuine care, the ending is exactly as painful as it should be. What it left me with, the idea that you can do everything right, love someone completely, and still not be able to give them what they need. Not because you failed, but because the world doesn't run on what's fair. Teacher knows this by volume 2. He does it anyway. Thanks for watching this one. The relationship between Shiva and Teacher is one of the most carefully constructed things I've seen in manga in a long time, and it deserved the time. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, it genuinely helps the channel. Subscribe if you haven't and drop a comment below. What's the last completed manga you read that left you sitting quietly for a while after the final page? I'm curious. I'm Jan, see you in the next one.